movies like Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion and Woody Allen's Mighty Aphrodite, in which she took home the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. But she's also known for her most important role as Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations. Her focus? Combating human trafficking. Her new film, which she executive produced, battles that topic. It's about a young boy forced into human labor. It's called City of Dreams. Take a look.
We've got evidence there's more of them in there.
Kind of busy Shin. Got any ID for the boy?
Back to work!
You're never gonna let us leave.
This is America.
Please welcome Mira Sorvino to New York Living. It's wonderful to see you.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
That is quite a powerful film, and it's just the trailer. And I want to take a step back because some folks may not realize you've been a Goodwill Ambassador with the United Nations since 2009.
Yes.
Why is this something you're so passionate about?
It's a kind of a long story. I started first with Amnesty International as their Stop Violence Against Women campaign spokesperson when I was pregnant with my first girl child, my first daughter. I have 4 kids. Yeah. And I just wanted to make the world a safer place for women. And under their banner of looking at abuses towards women across the globe, human trafficking affects 70%. Its victims are women and girls. And I didn't even understand that slavery still existed, that it had gone from the legal chattel slavery of the past to the illicit underground, booming $250 billion a year business that it is today, criminal slavery, that it's hidden from view. And I met survivors and they changed my life, and I just felt like I could not look away and I could not get more in. I had to get more and more involved in this fight. So in 2009, the UN asked me if I would join their efforts with UNODC, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and I've done it ever since, and now I'm also on the board of the UN Voluntary Trust Fund for victims of trafficking of persons.
Talk to us about the film, City of Dreams. We saw that little clip, but what else can you tell us about it?
Well, City of Dreams, I believe that the director, Mo, was originally inspired by a case that took place in El Monte, California, where a group of, I believe they were Thai immigrant. They were basically trafficked into the country, and they were kept under lock and key in this house, and then they were bused to their factory place of work and back for 7 years before they were sort of found out by neighbors. Neighbors saw like razor wire on the fences, saw that these people never went out of the house on their own. And finally, you know, the concern of other people led authorities to crack the case and discover that these people were there as slave labor, allowed no freedom of movement, paid nothing or next to nothing, maybe a tiny pittance to send home every month to keep their families at home in line. And he decided to make this story about a young boy who had falsely been promised dreams of a soccer camp in the U.S., and instead he finds himself working in a horrendous sweatshop making fast fashion garments.
Speaking of, 2 things. It happened in plain sight. Again, it's sort of this invisible atrocity that we're not paying attention to, except for folks like you. Fast fashion figures itself into human trafficking, and I wonder if you could parse that out for us.
Sure. So the problem is with any kind of good or service around the globe. Obviously, capitalism says, let's make things with the highest profit margin, right? So we want to,
regardless of how we
make the most money on a product. So that means make it as cheaply as possible. And in so many of these larger scale businesses, there are so many steps in their supply chain that at the bottom, they subcontract out to people who bid for the job. I'll make your t-shirt, I'll make your shoe. I can get it to you for this amount per item. And the lowest bidder wins, and there's no accountability. The the parent company usually doesn't ever know the factory that's making the product, and that's how slavery comes into supply chains, because these subcontractors can make things much more cheaply if they don't pay the people making the good. So that translates sometimes into our savings at, you know, the buying point. So when we go and we buy something for $7 that ordinarily would cost 30 or 50 or 100, we're like, what a deal, this is amazing. But you have to think, how did it come so cheaply? How could this possibly have been made so cheaply if human beings who are making this are being paid like a living wage? And so this is the problem, is that we don't have enough vetting systems in place globally and in the U.S. to see whether there is slavery in supply chains at any point.
Anything else that folks who watch this that you recommend that they do to combat
Okay, so
human
if you
trafficking?
are that neighbor, if you have that you know, spidey tingling sense that something you're seeing doesn't seem right, there seems to be a situation which might be the possibility of human trafficking, whether it's sex or labor trafficking. And they're different, but they're also similar in a way. Call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline, or you can text it. And sometimes texting is easier for victims. Like if someone is watching this and they recognize what I'm describing, that they don't have freedom of movement without risk of harm to themselves or their families, if they are not really being paid, if their documents are being held, if they are being threatened to be exposed to the police or their immigration status exposed, then you're probably being trafficked. So you can text Be Free, BEFREE, and that will also connect you to an operator at the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline. If you want to get involved to help, I can tell you I am on this board of this fund, the UN Voluntary, it's very long, UN Voluntary Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking in Persons, but we call it UNVTF. The website is endht.org, and we give grants to NGOs, nonprofits across the globe who are specifically on the ground helping rescue and rebuild the lives of people who have been trafficked. And this year's special focus is children. The concept is Leave No Child Behind, and we are really focusing on child victims who make up 1/3 of global victims. So this boy in this story, unfortunately, is not unique. He's not a standout in, usually it's not children. 1/3 of our victims.
One of many, for sure. And while we're speaking of the film, do yourself a favor. You can watch it now. It's streaming on Apple TV Plus and on Prime Video, and will be available for wide release in January.
Yes.
Mira
City of
Sorvino,
Dreams.
thank you so much.
Thank you.